Hello and good morning friends, welcome to CEC Live Lectures. Dear friends, today in this session we are going to talk in our series on organizational behavior. Today our topic of discussion is from road rage to desk rage. Now you might be wondering what we are talking about. Dear friends, we would be discussing in detail on incivility and bullying at a workplace, and for this very discussion we have once again with us in our studios the most prolific and dynamic professor Dr. Namita Rajput, who is currently principal in Sri Aurobindo Evening College, University of Delhi. Dr. Rajput has authored numerous books and number of her articles have been published in reputed journals both at national and international level. So we are going to welcome our guest Dr. Namita Rajput, and we are going to have a deep insight into today's topic. Friends, if you want to ask questions from Dr. Rajput on today's topic, that is incivility and bullying at workplace, then you can contact us through our toll-free number. Our number is 1-800-110-430. I repeat, our number is 1-800-110-430. Friends, you are requested to call in the last 10 minutes of the lecture so that the lecture goes uninterrupted and your queries are resolved in the last 10 minutes. So let's welcome our guest Dr. Namita Rajput, and let's try to have maximum knowledge on today's topic. Hello ma'am, welcome to the lecture.
Good morning friends. Today we have a very pertinent topic called from road rage to desk rage. As the name suggests, there are so many dynamics, there are so many problems which are there in the present contemporary world and the organizations of today that it is very difficult to manage the things because of the work dynamics. So there are so many, topics which are there in the concurrent to this kind of a problem. So we call it as a workplace dynamics. So let us have a look on this. What parameters, paradigms and frontiers are contained into a workplace dynamics. Like we have different people with different disabilities. We have work background, we have thinking style, we have our own life journey, we have our own upbringing, we have a different marital status. Some people are married, some people are unmarried, so they have their own limitations in terms of which they live their own life. So there is a strong and a straight spillover from their personal lives to their professional lives. What is happening in their personal lives, it is definitely reflected in their professional life also. Similarly, we come from different backgrounds, we live in different locations, and the locations and the geographic locations, they also have a straight spillover on our way of working, on our way of speaking. There are certain things which are accepted in one culture and they are not accepted in the other culture. So because of these views, because of these kind of dynamics, there is a difference of opinion which is there in the organizations of today, because of which we call it as a desk rage. Although it's a very definite and a new world which is coming in the contemporary organizations of today, but we have to manage this incivility. So we call it as incivility, we call it as bullying at workplace, we call it as desk rage. So there are so many nomenclatures which are available on these aspects and on these areas. So definitely not only this, we have some kind of generational aspects also, like we have almost 5 generations which are working in the organizations of today. There are certain people, we call it as veterans, they are consultants, and similarly as we move down to the organizations, we have baby boomers. They are on the top of the organizations who give us the valuable considerations, valuable advice because of their lot of experience in the organizations. Then we have Gen X and Gen Y. So particularly the pulse of the present organizations is Gen Y. We have Gen X people who are almost like 40 to 50 years of age, and below that we call it as Gen Y. So there is a difference in their work culture, there is a difference in their way of thinking. So motivational strategies, retention strategies, working strategies, they actually differ from generations to generations. So there is a generational diversity which poses a lot of challenge on the millennium managers of today because of the varying conflicts of interest which are there. I'll give you one example of Gen X and Gen Y, which clearly gives you the maximum challenge which the millennium managers of the people of the modern contemporary organizations are facing today. Like the Gen Y, that is the recent generation, which is the pulse, it almost comprises of the 40% 70% of the workforce, they have a very different way of working. For them, loyalty has got no meaning. What matters is for them is just the money. If they're getting 2,000 rupees more in one organization, they don't mind switching their job from one organization to another organization. Similarly, if you compare this kind of a work style with the other generation, that is the Gen X, they believe in loyalty. They believe in stability. They want to work on the maximum time with one organization and show their loyalties to the maximum extent. So their way of working is different, their lifestyle is different, because when you talk about Gen X, they have a lot of commitment on their command in terms of taking care of their family issues, feeding their children. So they cannot afford to be switching very quickly, or in terms of the turnover ratio is the least in case of Gen X compared to Gen Y. So we will compare few more differences as we move on with the presentation of today. So, taking place of the workplace dynamics, as you can see on this slide, we have a work background, we have different age, we have different sexual orientation, we have different race, disabilities, ethnicity, geographic location, generational motivators, military experience, marital status, income, thinking style, education and parental status. So these are the parameters and the frontiers which differs from organization to organization because of the composition of the different people who are a part of the workforce. They are different in the different organizations. So we cannot have a common solution for all the organizations, and we cannot have a tailor-made solution for all the organizations, because in some organizations the composition in terms of Gen X is more compared to Gen Y is less, and similarly, and vice versa. So we cannot have a common thing for all the organizations. So when you left for the work this morning, what did you leave behind? These are certain questions which will make the conceptual clarity. The first is your opinions, your generation, your doubts, your secrets, your race, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your uniqueness, your background, your native language, your children, your real hairstyle, your politics, your gender, your personality, your ideas. So the idea of showing you these questions is very, very clear. This shows the varying work styles, this shows the varying personalities which are reflected in the work culture of today. So, taking it forward, when you are onto the organizations, you have a different lifestyle, you have a different the meanings which you contain to the different values of the organizations. So because of which there is a massive difference in opinion, and sometimes you feel that the other person is bullying you, or you feel that there is some kind of incivility which you feel in their behavior is. Then because of all these things, sometimes there is a deadlock in the management. There is no consensus which you can build up in terms of the issues of the organizations, which are very pertinent for their the long life, for their sustainable life, for their survival, etc. So these things are so important, and to understand these issues, we need to have a very deep understanding of their the basic lifestyle, about their thought process, about the generation cohorts. The generation cohorts are very, very important in terms of the organizations. Why? Because the generation cohorts differs from generation to generation, and of course when you talk about the lifestyle which they are leading, which makes their the opinion different from one generation to another generation. So I talked about the generation cohorts. Generation cohorts are the kind of opinion which one organization is built, like the people who are born and brought up around 72 to 68, or from 68 to 73. So almost the conditions of the country and across the globe are almost the same. So the culture which is prevailing in that period is also the same. So they are bound to take up that kind of an opinion, that kind of a lifestyle, that kind of a framework of mind, and they live their lives accordingly, and they built their opinion into the organizational decisions accordingly. So these are the points which are so pertinent and important to understand. So there are certain current headlines which I would like to highlight here. That is, fearing the long recession, employers halt hiring, foreclosures increasing, housing bottom not in sight, Politics can chill water cooler chatter. Workplace survey by Walt Politics, 46% have witnessed a political argument between the co-workers, and job losses accelerate the signaling of deeper distress. So the Harris Interactive poll indicates that 7 out of 10 areas residents says that the job and the money are significant sources of stressing and exceeding the national average. So why these headlines are important? Because they are stating the different scenario of the various organizations, that because of which the stress increases. Some people, they are always into some kind of unnecessary argument with their bosses. So this creates a lot of issues in them, and they are unhappy with their present scenario in terms of the money factor which is given to them. So almost all the organizations, people who are unhappy, there are basically, we talk about the survey here, that the factors are almost they are revolving around the money. So you have to take care of the money, you have to take care of the financials, so that they feel happy to be a part of it, and they do not feel negated in terms of whatever efforts they are spending for the organizations, and they are not being paid off. So what is the end result? If they are unhappy, they are unsatisfied, it is reflected in their organizational behavior. So which is definitely some kind of incivility which their co-workers will be feeling, which their co-workers will be, they are unhappy about it. So we are stressing today on aspects of incivility aspects, which is increasing day by day in the organizations of today. So how does it make you feel? Communicating to work and someone cuts off you, nearly causing you an accident. What if was a co-worker who did this to you? Seeing others talking on phone while driving and not paying attention in the fast lane. Weaving in and out of traffic light stunt drivers. Riding behind someone with a political bumper sticker in the fast lane going 55 in a 55 mph zone in front of you. Late because of an accident, backing up traffic, gas prices, current financial crisis, your 401 and 402, etc. So definitely, there are certain things which I highlighted here, that if you are communicating with your co-workers and they are not paying any kind of attention to you, they just pass by, they just care a damn about, or they give a deaf ear to your, the voices which you are trying to raise in that organization. So you feel a kind of a discomfort. So that is a discomfort which disturbs all of you in the organization. So they feel unhappy that their voices are not being heard. They are not considered the vital part of the organizations. They don't feel that they are the pertinent and important part of the organization in terms of taking of decisions, etc., because nobody is paying attention to the issues which you are highlighting. So there are other factors also which we'll be highlighting soon. Minding your metro manners and ridership has grown. So keep your music to yourself. The personal music players keep volume so others cannot hear. The self-hold conversation, no one wants to hear your medical ailments or other personal information. Keep your germs to yourself. Be mindful of fellow riders' private space. Watch your body parts while standing or sitting, and no food, and please take baths before boarding. So there are certain, the metro manners or the cosmopolitan manners which you have to bear in terms of, having a comfort feeling working with your co-workers, in terms of taking bath, taking care of body odors, taking care of your, the music players, that you have to keep the volumes very lower, because nobody is interested in knowing about your personal life, your personal ailments, etc. So these things have to be very important to avoid any kind of a desk rage, because they are the beginners and they are the stepping stone towards the biggest desk rage as we talk of the road rage. So we have to be very careful about these small factors, these small things. Otherwise it can be a cause of distress, it can be a cause of discomfort, it can be a cause of a kind of a turnover from one organization to another organization. So there was a survey which I want to highlight here, that 50% of all the workers report yelling and verbal abuse on job, while 25% stating being driven to tears. 2 to 3% admit hitting, pushing, slapping someone at work. 100 million in the workforce, that amounts to as many as 3 million people. 1/6 of the US workers reported anger at workplace and has led to the property damage, and the 10 reported the physical violence at the workplace, fearing for safety. Contemporary pressures such as rising fuel cost fan the fuels and the people coming to work after the long commute sitting in the traffic, watching their discretionary income burn up, and they are all ready for a fight or usually just really being upset. So here we will be highlighting about the Reuter reports, which are the major factors for the desk rage. As we have highlighted here, that people, almost 50% they are into the physical abuse. Some people, they are really bad in terms of their behavior. Some people, they yell into any kind of a physical violence. And of course, after the long traveling in the traffic, they feel they are always on a fight and a real upset thing which they are not fearing good. So all these things, they lead to a derailing of your usual behavior, and that is what we call at incivility. So there are certain micro iniquities which we want to highlight here. That is the definition: the tiny damaging discretionary action or comment which normally one cannot do anything about it, yet they are incredibly damaging. So we have seen the backdrop, we have seen the factors which lead to this kind of a derailing of behaviors which the co-workers, they are not happy about. So what you have to do is you have to be very particular about your actions, about your stopping of incivility, about your violent behavior, about your softness in terms of speaking skills, etc. Because the derailing of behavior is very, very disastrous for the organization. It not only affects the productivity, it affects the interpersonal relationship, it affects your profitability, and they have a long, the desk rage impacts which are definitely negative. So the derailing behavior, they carry a very powerful impact, as I've said earlier. It does not matter what message you send, the only message that was received is a co-responsibility. Now, we are coming on to the examining cost of employee turnover due to the derailing of behavior. Now, this is one factor which is very important in terms of making of the strategies, making of the overall productivity impacting behavior. So, we are talking about that there are, if the people are on to a derailing of their behaviors, so what are the present impact on the employee turnover? So, let us have a look on this. The first is the administrative. The administrative, including the time spent, coping documents, scheduling appointments, coordinating with hiring managers. The second is the interview related, including the reference checks, emails, mailing, postage, resume screening, criminal credit checks, medical exams, drug test, orientation material and presentations. There's an outgoing employee, including the paid accrued vacation, separation pay, continued benefits, proceeding benefits, payroll processing and employment compensation. So you have seen here that if people are on to a derailing of their behaviors, this is definitely very, very damaging for the organizations, as they have spent a lot of money onto their administrative work in terms of copying with their documents, in terms of scheduling their appointments, and time and effort and money has been spent for them to know about the orientation about the company. And similarly, the outgoing employee will have a lot of cost in terms of giving them gratuity, retirement fund, superannuation funds and processing fees, etc. So this is definitely a big cost for the organization. So you should try and build up that kind of behavior which is not at all damaging for the organization and they are not derailed. So coming on to the employee dignity entitlements, people in this organization first receive recognition in proportion to their contribution. They are treated as unique individuals, not stereotyped, receiving a fair coaching, feedback to enhance their skills, and are clear about what is expected. Receive negative feedback in private in a matter that exhibits respect. Receiving a hearing about any concern or opportunity they want to bring to the attention of the organization. They receive a fair opportunity to compete for the jobs when available. Now, there are certain employee dignity entitlements which can actually reduce the derailing of behavior. Like time and again they are given promotions, time and again they are given increments, and in terms of their feedback, the importance is given to them in terms of strategizing for the company, making of policies for the company, and hearing about their problems, giving them a lot of opportunities to grow, and similarly giving them a fair chance to speak in terms of any kind of problems. That is the grievance settlement mechanism. Now the derailing behavior, you think your boss is bad, people not being told what is expected of them, then chastised for their failing to perform, people being promoted to appease them, people being intentionally ignored as a way to belittle them, people being left out of the loop in important information intentionally to hurt their performance, and people deserving promotions being overlooked to punish them. People join companies but they leave managers. So, taking care of this particular slide, this is very important to understand and very important to highlight that when the organization is being started and people start joining, so there should be a crystal clear role which has to be defined to them, what is expected out of them, how they have to move about in terms of performance, how they have to move about taking the actions, what is expected out of them, what is the timeline, how much they have to perform, and if not, what is the scenario. So we should not be blaming the individual for not performing because he was not being told. So in case of the behavior which is expected out of them, if we do not want any kind of derailing of their behavior or incivility in the organizations, we should be very particular about intentionally telling them what is expected out of them, how they have to perform before blaming them. So if all the scenario is being clearly told to them, then of course they will work towards it, they will strive towards it, and the organization is not far from the road of success. But in case of the vice versa and the situation which is contrary to this, then nothing can happen positively. Now we are coming to a concept called incivility. The incivility is evidenced by disrespectful behavior. It undermines the dignity, self-esteem of an employee, creating unnecessary suffering. So there's a US survey which is in front of you. 28% lost work time avoiding the instigator of the incivility. 53% of the time lost worrying about the incident, future interactions. 37% believe their commitment at work declined. 22% have decreased their effort at work. 10% decreased the amount of time that they spent at work. 12% actually changed the jobs to avoid the instigator. So we can see here that incivility is a kind of a very bad behavior, a disrespectful behavior which has disastrous impact. Like people can lose their jobs, people can lose their productive time in terms of which they have to finish their work. Similarly, in terms of their commitment, in terms of their decreased, the efficiency of the work. So all these things are, really bad, that people, they do not wish to be a part of that organization. They want to just go away from that organization because the organization people are incivilized. They are not civilized in terms of their behavior. So incivility has got the deep and the disastrous impact which has to be controlled, and there's nothing which cannot be monitored and controlled. Any kind of derailed behavior, any kind of misbehavior, any kind of incivility can also be controlled. But you have to be very particular about the strategies which the organization implements. You have to see the root cause of their wrong behavior. You have to see the root cause of their incivility, because sometimes at the mental level they are unhappy. They do not feel that they are being honored in that organization. You should develop a kind of a ownership in them, because the kind of ownership feeling, if you are able to develop into them, you are able to transform them, then of course nothing can stop you on the road of success. But yes, if the people feel that they come and drag their time, complete their time, and they are being paid for being at least from 9 to 5, so they will just kill their time, they just spend their time like that, and they will not put in their best heart and soul for increasing the productivity, profitability of the organization. So it has to be checked, it has to be controlled, and only then the disastrous impact of incivility can be controlled. Otherwise, this is a stigma for the organization, and the incivil behavior, they increases many times if they are ignored. So it cannot be ignored at any cost. So let us have a recap of what we did in this first half of the lecture. So we started with the concept of the workplace dynamics, that we are into a different world in terms of the disability, in terms of our physical behavior, in terms of our income, marital status, generational diversity, location. So the age, race, ethnicity, disability and generation orientation, because of which there's a difference in opinion and there's a lot of problem in the organization. But a good manager, in order to have the best organization behavior, it keeps under check all these things and all these factors. They have to be very particular about the doubts and the problems which the people are facing in that organization. And of course, if there is a problem, it has to be checked. And any kind of, the desk rage is very, very damaging for the organization. Any kind of derailing behavior is also very, very damaging for the organization, although they are not seen directly, but they are indirectly seen in the terms of productivity, profitability, etc. And of course, it does not matter what message you send, only the message what you receive. So you have to be very polite, you have to have all kind of employee dignity entitlements. All the employee dignity entitlements can control the issues to the maximum possible extent, because giving recognition to them, taking care of their problems and fair coaching to them, good feedback, clear role which they have to perform, can really check the organizations from the people to going on a road rage or from a desk rage. And of course, incivility has to be checked at any cost, otherwise it will have a very disastrous impact on the organization. So now we will be talking on workplace bullying. It's a kind of a similar topic which we did in the first half, that is the incivility. So workplace bullying and incivility, derail behavior, they are all a part and parcel of the same aspects. Now we would be covering here certain key research questions. What is a workplace bullying? How does the workplace bullying occur? What motivates the bully? What type of people are at risk for becoming targeted? What are its effect on victims, observers and business? What can be done about it, and how can a social change agent helps combat the problem? Now coming on to a very important and a pertinent issue of what workplace bullying is all about. Now today we have too complex to be having a universal definition to it. Repeated stress inducing actions towards another, passive, active, overt or covert actions that are intimidate, degrade, humiliate or undermine another. It creates a feeling of defenselessness. So it's a very important topic which affects the organizations of today, and of course they have a deep impact on the behaviors. Now workplace bullying can be stubborn and obvious, and it includes the following factors. First, spreading malicious rumors, gossiping, undermining or intentionally impeding another's work, blame or unwarranted criticism without factual justification, exclusion, social isolation, exclusive monitoring, micromanaging, unwarranted punishment, blocking training, leave or promotion. Now these are the important topics which the human resource manager has to take care of. Why? Because people are spreading malicious rumors, which is definitely having a negative impact on them, followed by you just say anything without having a factual clarity on it, that whether it is factually right or not. So you are just saying for the heck of it. So this creates a very negative impression about the people for whom you are saying. On the first instance, they will start accepting the fact that this person must be like this without verifying the actual facts. Then of course you start blaming anyone without confirming it. You are always into unwarranted criticism, which is again bad for the organization. So, any kind of social isolation you keep a person into, that nobody talks to them, nobody listens to him. He's isolated in terms of his, sitting arrangements, in terms of his socializing in the organization. So, all these factors are very negative for the organization, and hence they have a negative impact and the spillover onto the organizations, followed by the blocking training and leave or promotion. So all these factors are very important to be justified. They have to be controlled to the maximum possible extent, otherwise it will be a huge problem to carrying out with the workplace bullying. Now let us have a look on this slide. The workplace bullying is not a strict supervisor, consequences for poor work performance, warranted, demotion, discipline and counseling. So you have to understand the workplace conflict. You have to see a tough boss or a workplace bullying. The conflict plus malice is equal to bully, and the conflict plus no malice is equal to a tough boss. So acts without a malice. How does the workplace bullying happen? There are good employers, purge bullies, may the employer promotes EM, ignorance of the issue, bully supported through action or inaction of the management, stressed employees, taking frustrations on them, no system of reporting or protection for the victims, lack of recognition and anti-bullying laws worldwide. Now, how do the targets handle the bullying? Now, bullying is one aspect which has to be really checked, because people in India, specifically the Southeast Asian countries and in India, people are in a habit of bullying too much in the organizations. They are really bad, they are really causing a lot of issue in terms of their performance, etc.
Dear friends, you are welcome to ask questions from Dr. Namita Rajput. If you have any queries, then you can definitely contact us through our toll-free number. Our toll-free number is 1-800-110-430. I repeat, our number is 1-800-110-430. Friends, we are talking on incivility as well as bullying at workplace, and we believe that you might have learned a lot from today's lecture, what Dr. Namita Rajput has delivered today. So you are welcome to contact us. We are carrying forward the lecture, and afterwards, if you feel so that you have any query, any question, you are welcome. Yes, ma'am, please carry forward the lecture.
How do the targets handle bullying? So this is a very important aspect which we have to take care of, that we have to handle the bullying aspect, the bullying behavior in the organization. So the target accept the bullying behavior as a part of employment. The victims fear a retribution or losing the position of making waves, and 75% of the victims, they end bullying behavior only by leaving the company entirely. So you can see the disastrous impact of not taking care of the bullying aspect, that the people, they are, they have lost completely interest in that organization and they want to leave that organization, because the bullying behavior, it affects the heart, body and soul, and they do not want to be and wish to be a part of that organization. They feel unhappy, they feel dissatisfied, they feel disgusted, and they want to leave that organization, because it affects the workplace, the safety hazards also, and everything is taking care of the negative aspects, and there's a complete negative spillover of all these parameters onto an individual's heart, body, mind and soul. So we have to check the bullying behavior at any cost, because the good people will leave the organizations which are definitely an asset for the organization. So bullies work to psychologically and systematically wear a target to ensure the job security, further their own career, exert or gain a sense of power, instill a fear in the target or observes. So the work environments can perpetuate bullying. Now there are certain motivations for bullying. First, the personal prejudice harbored against others, prevent advancement opportunities for target, create a spagot for the workplace stressors such as company downsizing, unreasonable work demands or the workloads, create a social isolation for the targets. So the bully-target relationships are from top to down. The managers and the supervisors who bully the subordinates, it's a top-down bully-target relationship, that is from managers, that is the top-level managers, they are coming on to a supervisor, so we call it as a top-down. Followed by a horizontal, that is when your peer who bully the co-workers in a similar job position. So all these things are really bad for the organization, whether it is a top-down, horizontal or a bottom-up. In the bottom-up, the workers who bully the supervisors or the managers. So this is a maximum dangerous position for the organization, when the people who are down in hierarchy, they try and bully the management in terms of taking care of the wrong aspects to the workers as well as the managers onto the top of the organization. They have a cheek to say all these things onto the top level management, which is again bad for the organization. So you can see a pie chart here. That is a green figure. It says that the 10% of the organizations, they are from a bottom up, and in terms of the bosses, that is the top down, we have 72, and the last one, that is the horizontal, we have the 18%. Be it a top down, be it a horizontal, be it a bottom up, the strategy of the bully target relationship is actually wrong, because you are always into a wrong behavior, incivility, and the parameters are always negative, and they are trying to intervene of one work with the other work, which is again very, very bad. So coming on to the target risk factors. Perceived as threat to job security or advancement, negative interpersonal relationship or the role conflicts, high risk job seekers or level of employment, viewed as a weak or easy to victimize. So there is a diversity issue, that is the race, culture, ethnicity, national origin, religion, age, gender, personality traits, physical characteristics, sexual orientation and the gender identification. So we have seen here the target risk factors because of which the bullying at workplace increases. Like you are always into the vicinity of the others, you are trying to intervene the boundaries and you want to cross your boundaries and enter into the boundaries of another person. You are always into a negative role, you are always fighting with one another. So because of this, the interpersonal role conflicts happens, because of which the bullying at workplace, incivility and derail behavior, they all are on a rise, which is again bad for the organization. Followed by the high risk job seekers or the level of employment. So all these factors, they increase because of the diverse issues also. Like we have people in the organizations of today with the different race, culture, ethnicity, national origin, religion. So they have their own mindsets. Like for example, the Americans, they call all the people with the name. Whereas if in India, we call the older people by name, we call it as an incivil behavior. We call it as a derailed behavior, that he is so junior and he is calling the elder one by name. So that is the name culture which is accepted in America, and this is not the culture which is accepted in India. So because of this clash of the ethnicity aspects, this also creates a lot of problem, because nowadays we are into a multicultural society, we are into a globalized world where there is no boundaries in terms of race, culture, etc., and the people from every nook and corner of the globe, they are a part and parcel of the workplace. So when they are joining the workforce, they have their own mindsets, they have their own culture. So there is a cultural shock sometimes, because the things which are accepted in one culture may not be accepted in the other culture. So because of which these factors, they are on a rise. Now I'll give you certain statistics by the gender also. The following chart denotes the percentage. Men bullying men is 34%. Women bullying women is about 30%. Men bullying women is about 28%. And women bullying men is about 8%. So there is a clear-cut indication of this slide that women is a subdued sex in terms of they are never into, or maybe a few of them, as you can say the percentage is only 8%, that the women bullying men is only 8%, and it is a authentic statistics, and it is across the globe accepted that women is not as bad as men in terms of bullying at workplace or behavior at workplace, and the overall the culture is bad from men to men, from women to women, but from like men to women is 28%, because it's a patriarchal society across the globe, so they have a right and they cannot take the women as their bosses. Similarly, from women to men is only 8%. So these statistics are so important that we can make certain strategies out of it, because to just collect the statistics has got no meaning unless and until we take this statistics as an implication for making the strategies for controlling the bullying at workplace behavior is concerned. So out of this particular slide, it is very clear that we have to make more of strategies to control the men to women rather than from women to men. So the things are very, very clear in this regard. Now coming on to the effects of bullying on the victim. The stress and job dissatisfaction, high absenteeism, hypervigilance, psychological and sociological distress, and the job loss. So we can see here that a person who is a victim of bullying at workplace, it has such disastrous impact. The first is the stress. They feel a lot of stress working in that organization. They feel dissatisfied for being a part of that organization. Similarly, they start avoiding coming to that organization. That is, there is a straight and a clear-cut rise of absenteeism, and followed by a hypervigilance, because you will be under vigilance if the things are getting from bad to worse. And of course, you will have some physiological, sociological and other issues in terms of the bullying at workplace, and probably you do not wish to be a part of that organization anymore, so there will be a job loss. So you can see here the effects of bullying on a victim is so bad that this has to be checked at any cost. And some people, there are few reported cases of even suicides also, because the people are so distressed. They do not wish to continue to live their lives also, and it affects their personal life also, because the person who is distressed at workplace, disgusted behavior of their superiors or maybe their co-workers, because as we have seen, there are three types of bullying at workplace: from top to down, from their co-workers, and from bottom to up. So any kind of bullying, if the person is a victim of, then it affects the emotional imbalance, emotional outburst, and will have a straight negative spillover onto their negative lives, on their personal lives also. So they have a devastating effects, so you have to check it at any cost. And of course, the suicide rates, you can see the slide, 50% of the surveyed individuals, they reported contemplating suicide, 20% later succeeded for this, and the victims of the bullying are 3 times more likely to experience depression than the average individual. So the depression problem is at a rise in terms of the bullying at workplace, and the impact of bullying on the victims has been found to correlate with the diagnostic criteria of post-traumatic stress disorder and anxiety. So after having analyzed the factors because of which the bullying at workplace happens, we have seen the factors, the risk factors which affect this kind of bullying at workplace. We have seen that if a person gets a victim to a bullying at workplace, what are the disastrous impact? So it could be a stress, it could be a job satisfaction, it could be a job loss, it could be a hypervigilance, high absenteeism, and definitely a kind of a depression. Similarly, there are certain reported cases for suicide, and the problem mainly is about the post-traumatic stress disorder and anxiety. So you have to be very particular in understanding these issues at a workplace. Now we'll come on to the observers, the bystander effect of bullying at workplace. The bystander effect is the idea that observers stand by unwilling to assist someone in need of a help. 12% of the observers report that they have witnessed bullying. The bystanders fear that the workplace bully will turn on to them. In order to bystanders to feel comfortable enough to intervene, they need to know that they can do something about it, and witness needs to feel empowered and supported when they report a bullying behavior. So we have seen here that the people, they feel that the other person is being harassed at workplace, and they are feeling a job loss, a job satisfaction, dissatisfaction, and it could be a lot of rise in absenteeism, so on and so forth, but still they do not wish to help them. So they are the bystanders who are not willing to support them, because they feel somewhere there is a thought in their mind that if they start supporting them, or if they start standing in case of their need, they might the workplace bully will turn on to them, which is definitely very, very bad. So the bystanders effect and mobbing. The fear of becoming targeted causes the observers to join the force with the bully, resulting in mobbing. So this is definitely a very bad impact of the bystander and the mobbing. The workplace mobbing is an issue in which a group of people gang up on a target without redistribution of their actions. So in the previous slide we have studied that there is a problem in the organizations that there are no bystanders in this case, and if they feel that their co-workers are being harassed or there is a bullying at workplace with them, they will not stand by them. On the contrary, they will join the other group who is bullying them. So this is what is a bystander effect and mobbing, and it is definitely increasing the ill effects many more. It is having a multiplier effect onto their emotions, onto their problems, and of course the resulting is more of mobbing, and they would not wish to continue in that organization. Now coming on to the impact on the business of the bullying at workplace. So let us have a look on this. The billions of dollars have lost worldwide each day because of the high employee turnover, decreased productivity, low job satisfaction, high absenteeism. So the use of the work computers and technology extends the behavior into a cyberspace, selling and the business reputation. Where the electronic aggression happens, the chat rooms is about 25%, the website is 23%, instant messages is 67%, email is 25%, text messages is 16%. So categories are not mutually exclusive here. So we can see here that the impact of the bystanders, the impact of bullying at workplace, the impact of incivility at workplace, there is a high rate of employee turnover. They do not wish to be a part of that organization, followed by decreased in productivity, job dissatisfaction and high absenteeism. These are easy to say, but the impact is so enormous in this regard that if they are not checked, the organization will become titanic, and the organizations, they might have to face a musing in terms of closing their units. It is the most difficult task to play with the emotions of the individual, to make them happy, to make them out of that depression that they are a part and parcel of the organization, they are vital for the organization. To make them feel is also very, very difficult. Now coming on to the benefits of a zero tolerance policy. For a matter of fact, all organizations, they must have a zero tolerance policy in terms of bullying at workplace, in terms of incivility. If you have a policy of zero tolerance, then of course nobody can dare to create any kind of wrong behavior in the organizations, resulting into a labor turnover or whatever the negative impacts we have already talked about. So if you have a zero tolerance policy, following are the benefits. Let us have a look on this. First, improved staff satisfaction retention, enhanced reputation for the business, creates a culture of professional role models, improves the work safety and quality, greater staff willingness to report, reduced liability and the risk management, a more civil, productive, desirable workplace. So, they are all the positive things which will happen if you will have a zero tolerance policy. Like first of all, the people will start retaining in that organization in terms of less turnover, which is again the cost saving, and which is again adds to the profitability and the productivity of the organization that people would like to retain in that organization, followed by it creates a very good environment in the organization, a feeling of co-partnership, a feeling of happiness, and they wish to be a part of each and every activity of that organization, and they want to put their heart and soul into it. And first, one more thing which I want to highlight here, that there is a complete transformation from transactional approach to transformational approach, that they would start working not because of any kind of a force, but they are transformed from within, that they feel happy working for that organization. So, this is the most important and a positive impact of having a zero tolerance policy in that organization. And of course, the risk is managed to the best possible extent. The productivity is at its par excellence, and of course, you will have a more civil place to work, a more desirable workplace. So, what are the solutions to the problem? First, for the employees, never become a bully under any circumstance. Recognize when you are being bullied, realize it is not your fault. Third, there should be alert management immediately, and you should ask the witness to testify that they have observed the bullying. Now, these are the solutions for the employers. First, provide conference or workshops to educate and empower the employees. Number 2, create and enforce a zero tolerance anti-bullying policy. Determine and enforce a possible course of action for bullying behavior. The last, promote and endorse anti-bullying legislation. So, if the employer is always into framing of certain policies which gives a clear message to the people around in the organization that any kind of wrong behavior will never be tolerated, you should empower your employees in terms of giving lot of information, educating them by the way of seminars, conferences, classroom lectures, that if you are being bullied, what are the solutions, what is the legislation, and what are the policies of that company to take care of the bullying at workplace. Now, enacting the anti-bullying policies is very important and essential for that organization. Employers must establish and enforce the strict guidelines. They have employees submit a signed statement regarding commitment to abide by conducting rules. They should encourage the reporting, that in case you are being bullied, you must report to the management. They have focus groups to conduct the surveys to be analyzed regularly. Training and education, the 3 levels of intervention of bullies, victims and observers. Informal intervention, that is conducting of interviews to discuss events, listen to responses, get perspectives of the people involved. Awareness interventions, compilation and divulge complaints from the data in a supportive manner to raise the awareness. And authority intervention must specify the behaviors that need improvement, give timeline to improve the behaviors. Then of course, we now talk about the support services which are available and the employers can support the victims, observers and the bullies by offering a health care, support evaluation, treat the plans and the wellness programs, promoting training on professional behavior, participating in recovery of those who experienced or witnessed the disruptive bullying behavior. You can help by becoming an agent of social change. As you see on our right side, stop bullying, challenging bullies and achieving a dignity at work. We are all humans. We want dignity, we want respect, we want a good behavior, we want a congenial atmosphere, we want a friendly atmosphere. So if we want to create a heaven at a workplace, we have to stop bullying, we have to become an agent of change, we have to introduce a zero tolerance policy at any cost, and the policies and the strategies and the programs which are available in that organization, we must educate to the employees that if you are being bullied, you must report this thing immediately to the management. The management will surely take an action, give a very clear signal to the persons who is into bullying that this will never be tolerated. And of course, you must recognize and report the workplace bullying when it occurs immediately. They should help and educate and create awareness programs, volunteer to help the coordinators enact the health workplace bill, become a citizen lobbying and a state coordinator, assist the employers in creating an anti-bullying policies. So be a change, stop bullying at workplace. As you have seen in detail what happens when this policy of bullying and incivility and a derail behavior continues in the organization. It's a completely damaging factor for the organization and we have to say no to it.
With this note, thank you, ma'am. Thank you so very much for giving us a productive session. And dear friends, if you want to see the lecture the number of times you wanted, then we would like to tell you all that we are going to upload this lecture on YouTube for you. And afterwards, if you feel that you have some questions which are required to be answered, then do write to us at info.cec@nic.in. We would be meeting again soon and would be discussing more under the series Organizational Behavior. Till then, take care. Goodbye. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you once again.